Hello and welcome. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Tonight, as the D8 summit in Istanbul, Turkey ends, President Buhari asked a group of developing countries to step up trade and investment among its members. Man jumps off the Ikoyi Link bridge to the Lagos Lagoon. State Emergency Agency says operation to recover his body continues tomorrow. All Progressive Congress vows to keep its promise to the people of Anambra State as it kicks off campaign ahead of the November the 18th governorship election in the state. And at least 60 killed in two separate attacks targeting Shia worshippers in Afghanistan. And on business news tonight, latest reports from the investment banking firm AfriInvest indicate 16.4% growth in gross earnings in Nigeria's banking sector for 2016.
On sports news, Francisca Odega set to become the first Nigerian to play in the Spanish Women League after joining Atletico Madrid Femenino on a loan deal.
And from Abuja, High Court judge in Lagos withdraws from a suit filed by a PDP member in Ogun State against the party and its leadership over allegations of bias.
We begin tonight from Istanbul, Turkey, where President Muhammadu Buhari is calling on member states of the group of developing countries to pay attention to trade and investment among their various countries. During his speech at the D8 summit in Istanbul, President Buhari revealed an AU-backed continental free trade area for Africa, which he says will also be beneficial to members of the D8. Our correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports.
We are committed to creating an enabling environment and making Nigeria an attractive place for business and investment. I wish to reiterate the commitment we made in Abuja in July 2010 regarding the critical importance of private sector in our economic policies. Having identified trade as the engine of economic growth and development, we must continue to enhance the enabling environment for it to thrive.
The stage is the 9th edition of the D8 summit in Istanbul. It's a speech anchored on the need for a strong economy for member states, with a clear call to assist the private sector and business communities.
It is in this light
He told his audience of an African initiative and solicits the support of the organization.
in Africa, we are on the threshold of finalizing negotiations to establish the first ever single market for trade in goods and services on our continent, in the Continental Free Trade Area for Africa. This will be a win-win for all, including member countries of the D8. As partners, I urge that we work together to support this effort of the African Union that will have a positive effect on global economic development and integration.
President Buhari assures the D8 leaders of Nigeria's continued support to the organization's secretariat in achieving its vision. That is further affirmed by Nigeria's readiness to host the meeting of the D8 Ministers of Industries in November. The host president and new chairman of the organization stresses the need to fight terrorism to finish, while seeking to expand membership of the organization. The D8 summit has come to an end. However, the communique, which will highlight the achievements from this meeting, is still being expected as at the time of filing this report. From Istanbul, Turkey, Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
Now, ever since independence and the formation of her foreign policy around issues on the continent, Nigeria has joined several international organizations. Nigeria's membership of the D8 organization is said to be driven by economic cooperation. In this next report, our foreign affairs correspondent Amarachi Ubani looks at the nation's efforts to better influence global decisions.
The D8 is just one of the more than 50 organizations Nigeria belongs to, alongside Bangladesh, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Malaysia, Pakistan and Turkey. It aims to improve member states' position in the global economy, diversify and create new opportunities in trade relations, enhance participation in decision-making at international level, and improve standards of living. Nigeria has been a member since 1997, and like other members, it joined for economic reasons. Trade between D8 member states as of 2006 amounted to at least $35 billion, rising to a whopping $68 billion in 2010. Plus, transactions between D8 countries account for 3.3% of world trade, projected to reach a further 10 to 15% in the next few years. Nigeria's interest in joining international organizations stems way back from after independence, when the country's foreign policy put Africa at its center. The quest for Africa's independence and continental unity, plus influence in the region, has led to participation in such organizations as the African Union, ECOWAS, the Non-Aligned Movement, the Commonwealth of Nations, and the United Nations. As national interest in regional continental leadership grew, Nigeria joined more groups such as the Food and Agriculture Organization, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the International Maritime Organization, and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. But membership incurs dues, and dues incur debts most of the time. For a country slowly recovering from recession, analysts of foreign policy believe the federal government's move to cut down on the country's membership of international organizations is a smart one if it is implemented. Amarachi Ubani, Channel Television News.
Now, to discuss the D8 meetings and its implications for the nation's foreign policy, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been part of the meetings all through the day, etc. What's your impression about Nigeria's outing at the summit?
Excellent. You know that President Muhammadu Buhari, he scored 2 goals using one opportunity, because on arrival, he proceeded straight to the capital, Ankara, where bilateral talks were held between Nigeria and the Turkey. And a lot of big issues in our relations with the Turkey, bilateral, multilateral, were discussed and resolved before we came to Istanbul for the D8 summit.
Well, I know you say that the outing was excellent, but do you think Nigeria has benefited from membership of the D8 as other countries have, looking at Egypt and some other participating nations? One major criticism that we have when we go into such agreements is that we don't often get out of it what we had expected. Is that the case for the D8 as well?
Well, if it had happened in the past, I think that the essence of what is happening in Istanbul, Ankara at this moment is that Nigeria is opening all the doors, all the windows that have been shut against international trade, and we are ready to open up. And the enthusiasm and interest of Turkey, in particular, which is one of the leading economies in the group, is evident in their decision to join Nigeria in investing in petroleum refineries, in aviation, development of our airports, and the transformation of an institution like the Defense Industries Corporation, DIC in Kaduna, into a military-industrial complex. A lot of decisions have been reached in this regard.
All right, I know in his address, the president did talk about the first ever, I think, single market for trade in goods and services on the continent, and he says that that is also backed by the AU. Can you throw more light on it and how that's going to work and how it will benefit us?
Well, the decision to open Africa, eliminate the visas and eliminate boundaries in the long run is a decision of the African Union. And what the president did is to request for support for the D8, to see it as a one huge opportunity. Look, everyone keeps talking about the next century being Africa's century. And that he thinks that it's good for the G8 to make an early stage by engaging the continent this early on so that they can gain the most when this new policy comes into play.
All right, what specifically was agreed on defense and security? I know all through the last couple of days we had talked about the fact that security, arms importation, etc. We don't actually have the finer details of what was agreed. Can you shed more light on that?
Exactly. I think the key agreement in this area includes the decision by both countries to support one another in fighting transnational crime. You just mentioned illegal, illicit arms importation. There's also human trafficking, there is also drug trafficking. Agreements have been reached on how to curtail these things. The written agreement will be duly signed in the coming days, weeks, when our lawyers have both studied the agreement. That is one aspect. The military agreement has also been reached for the training of Nigerian military men and women by Turkey. And as I said to you a short while ago, we have got at least 2 companies that are going to invest in the manufacture of Buhari for consumption in Nigeria and export to other countries. Of course, we'll back each other fighting terrorism in the international stage and also in our individual countries, which are confronted by these challenges.
All right, we understand that Nigeria is planning to host the Ministers of Industry of the D8 sometime in November. What's that about?
Well, that's the big one for us, because all of these things that they are discussing, they want to expand trade between themselves. Not only do they want to increase their voice in international, they want to influence greater participation. As our report just said a short while ago, they target between 10 to 15% control of the world trade between themselves. They are going to put this to practice, and the Abuja meeting is expected to focus on the mechanics, on how to achieve this great objective.
Now, one of the reasons I'm asking this next question is because of what we hear the government plans to do in terms of withdrawing from some of these international bodies that we're members of. What is the criteria that we're looking at for the withdrawal, and some of the reasons why? We know that debt is part of it, but is there any specific method to the withdrawal?
No, I don't think there is. Look, there are organizations that are there, for the glory of being there. And there are some that have produced great results, such as this one. Government is going to be careful. There will be prudence in deciding which ones to cut. The problem this country had faced is the fact that people without the authorization to do so, directors in government ministries, when they attend international conference, they subscribe to memberships. This thing comes with financial implications. Without the Ministry of Finance being involved, without the President sanctioning such participation, we got ourselves involved in too many we cannot now pay for. So I assure you that there would not be a threat to organizations such as this that are beneficial to our economy as to our own people.
And in terms of our specific foreign policy direction, that's one question I know you probably might not be the one to answer, but that is a question that does come up, particularly when we go on international outings like this, what our specific direction is for the continent and the world at large.
Well, certainly this is not my question. However, the President of Nigeria left the country with 3 clear objectives in his mind. He wants to get support and cooperation to tackle terrorism. He wants support cooperation to boost trade and enhance private sector participation in our own economy. And I think that substantially these 3 objectives have been met at this visit to Turkey.
All right, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, thanks for joining us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And in part 2, after the break, trial of Supreme Court Justice Sylvester Nguta in Abuja stalled owing to absence of witness in court. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.